Happy holidays, everybody. It is just before Christmas, the week of Christmas here as we make this recording. Dave and Tiff Sports Podcast here, ready for you to roll. Tiff and I coordinated our attire here, and we are going to have almost, well, except for the hat, because this is a holiday.
Yeah.
Yep, there it is. Holiday festivities here, getting ready to roll. We're going to have a special guest here because this is the week where, oh my.
There you go.
There
you go. See?
There it is.
That's right. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, there we go. And boy, our guest will be very happy to see that we are in the spirit of things because Hawaii football is in the spirit of things. They're going to be playing in a bowl game, the New Mexico Bowl this week. So we'll have R.J. HOLLIS, former offensive lineman with the Rainbow Warriors, joining us today to not only kind of sum up the season that the Hawaii football team had and also look ahead at this bowl game. And we'll talk of some other stuff as well. We'll also have a special thing because if you watch us, if you catch our podcast either on Buzzsprout, wherever you get your podcasts, or the video version on YouTube or our Facebook page at David Tiff. And Tiff's background always gives a hint to our guests. Of course, Aloha Stadium is your background. And let's start with this. We're going to talk about some college football, but the news about Aloha Stadium, and we'll get to this with RJ a little bit when he comes on, is the fact that no more stuff happening at Aloha Stadium, at least, indefinitely. They came out with the announcement, no more new events, which obviously means no more University of Hawaii football coming up. And although a new stadium is designed to be built at some point in 2023, there's still 2 more football seasons to be had here. And already University of Hawaii needs to look for a new place to play at. Your reaction when you first heard that news about Aloha Stadium?
Devastating. A lot of people, whether they're born and raised or they're transplants and they come here, whether it's for college or they just, happen to move here. It's a venue you go to, whether it's a UH game, whether it's a high school football game. Heck, a lot of people went when the Islanders played there. Whether you had
you
Pro
remember the
Bowls.
Islanders? That was before you were born.
I was before my time, but they do have a very sweet logo. They needed that somehow. That needs to be brought back. Whether it's the swap meet, different types of concerts, truck rallies, you name the events, it's been there, and that's been a part of all of our lives. And for us working at the station, being there week in and week out for home football games, you spend countless hours there. It's almost we joke about the Stan Sheriff Center being our home away from home during Wahine basketball season. But for those that work football games throughout the year, it's their second home. And to hear the news, I did not personally get to play at this facility. Been to it a lot of times as a fan and as a worker for the station. Devastating. That's where I'm at right now.
Well, later in our podcast today, we're going to have a little thing. You and I are going to come up with some suggestions as to where the University of Hawaii can play their football games next season. So we'll see what we come up with. And then if it's good enough, let's send it over to Athletic Director David Matlin and say it's an official proposal for a new location. What a bummer and what a bind it puts on the University of Hawaii football program, because they really have to try and turn things around and figure out a place to play no sooner than later because of all the logistics that will have to go involved with that. But we'll segue over to college football because okay, the college football playoffs have been set. So the 4 teams that are in it, Alabama.
Has it really been set though? Has it really been set? We know it's an invitational.
Okay. All right. This is my soapbox here. Okay. So Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame are the 4 teams. Here's my theory. And again, we're going to go back in history before you're born, Tiff. But to me, this whole scenario of college football, the way it is now, started way back in 1984. In 1984, that was the year that BYU was declared the national champion because the way the stars aligned, they were the only undefeated team that season. That was when part of the Western Athletic Conference, they played in the Holiday Bowl. They defeated a mediocre Michigan team, which was 6-6 on the year. They defeated them in the last second. Robbie Bosco was the quarterback. So they ended up undefeated and a lot of controversy, but they were declared the national champion because Back then, you had to go by an AP vote. And the fact that they were undefeated, they got the nod. Since then, every doggone president and athletic director in what has now become the Power 5 conferences, Pac-12, Big 12, Big 10, SEC, and ACC, said, we don't ever want to have that happen again, where just because Ohio State or just because Alabama has one loss and there's some other mid-major or group of 5 school that gets an undefeated season, should they be declared the national champion? So fast forward, we had the BCS, and now we have this college football playoff. But it all started back then, because now we have a situation where any school, here's the math. Here's the math, okay? Here's the math. There are 127 teams in college football Division I or FBS, football bowl subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? 62 of those teams have absolutely no chance of winning a national title. Absolutely.
I'd say more than 62 of them have no chance.
That's just because, how do I come to that number? It's based on all the schools that are not in the Power 5. That's 62 teams not in the Power 5. So just based on that, they have absolutely no chance. And then when you look at the Power 5, even if you win your conference, does not guarantee you a spot in the playoff, because there's only 4 and there's 5 conferences. Of the schools that have made it to the playoffs in 7 seasons, including this one, since it started back in 2014-15 season, Alabama has gone 6 times. Clemson has gone 6 times. Oklahoma has gone 4. Ohio State 3. Notre Dame 2. And there's a list of other schools that have gone 1 time. 6 other schools have gone once. So basically, the college football playoff is basically 2 schools, a third, and the rest got to fight for that 4th of the Power 5. So when you say there are more teams that really have no shot, there are so much more within the Power 5 that realistically have no shot of making winning a national title. Whereas,
can we just rename it from the CFP to the CFI to the College Football Invitational?
That's what it is. In college baseball, everyone has a chance. In college basketball, everyone has a chance on paper, because if you win your conference, you will get, at minimum, a bid into the tournament. Now, granted, if you're one of the group of 5, your chances of beating these other bigger schools is very small. But you have, as what they say in the movie Dumb and Dumber, there's a chance. So you're
saying there's a chance.
So that's my soapbox. It has come to the point where college football sucks, because almost half have absolutely no chance. Even more than half have no chance of making a championship.
Where do we start with this? I mean, do we go and start with Notre Dame? Because if they didn't get an exception into the ACC, they would not have played Clemson twice. Their schedule may not have gotten them strong enough into be a top 4 consideration. Do we go with BYU? The fact that they're penalized because their schedule, which was going to be really good before COVID hit, basically wiped out their entire schedule. Their AD, Tom Halmo, had to basically go on the fly, put schedules together. Heck, they went to Coastal Carolina on 3 days' notice, and they came up within a yard of winning at Coastal Carolina. You look at Cincinnati, all they did was basically bum rush their way through the AAC, go undefeated, and they drop in polls. And you reward teams like, I know it's a good story, Iowa State. They lose at home to a Sun Belt team. Yes, it's week 1, but they continue to get a whole lot of love in the college football playoff rankings. And it's to hear what they say, that it's a body of work and it's strength of schedule and who you play and blah blah blah. It's really a joke, and it's an invitational, like we said. And the fact that teams get penalized for either not playing or losing a close game, whether they're a Power 5 team, then you throw in a Group of 5 team that loses maybe one game, or in the case of Cincinnati, plays their schedule. They're told, you got to go out and schedule. They do so. They win the regular season. They win their conference championship game. They run the table, and they will not get to go and represent themselves to play for national championship. Coastal Carolina, same story. Their conference championship game gets canceled because of COVID. They don't get an opportunity to play in a New Year's Six Bowl, whereas you have at least 3 Power 5 teams with 3 losses, and they all get to go into the New Year's Six Bowl. Granted, we all want to see Clemson and Alabama because they have been the 2 best teams, but to say that the 4 best teams based off of the eye test, that's not the case this year.
And, let's go with, I'm going to even take away all the second-class citizens, which in college football is the group of 5 conferences, of which University of Hawaii is part of it. No chance. You're not even getting dessert or cake. You're going to eat crumbs off of what we discharge from our dinner table. But I even look at the Power 5. In like this year's an example, the Big 12 and the Pac-12 are not represented. So winning your championship of your conference means squat. It doesn't mean. Is it going to take a time where eventually maybe the SEC at some point is like the Pac-12, where they're just not, their top team is just not in the top 10? You know what I mean?
No.
And then they're going to start crying, but because the college football playoff is all the Southeastern guys, that's when they're going to say, no, well, we need a change now because, by golly, it's always ACC and the Big 12. Big 12.
Well, look at the conference that you come from. You come from the Pac-12. You're an SC grad.
Yeah.
Washington wins the Pac-12 North. They don't get to play in the championship game because of COVID issues. The second place team in the North Division, the Oregon Ducks, have to go to USC on 5 days' notice. And what do the Ducks do? I'm sorry, Dave. They win. They win at the Coliseum. And remember, one of the best teams in the conference, Colorado, doesn't even play USC this year. So there really wasn't a true South champion. And so it's basically 2020 in a nutshell, where the best team in the North wasn't the best team in the North. The best team in the South probably was not the highest rated team in terms of rankings. And your champion ultimately is a team that lost to Oregon State and was the second place team in the Pac-12 North.
Yeah, I'll give 2020 as this unique anomaly of a season because of all that. I'll even give Ohio State the benefit of the fact that they couldn't control how many games they could play because they were bitten by the COVID-19 bug in terms of games canceled, and the fact that the Pac-12 and the Big Ten took forever to decide that they wanted to play football. They had no control over that. But I just don't like the fact that so many teams have no chance, none. And even if you win a conference championship in the Power 5,
doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't
mean anything.
Squat. It doesn't mean anything because it's an invitational, like you said. It's who's the best. And I don't believe in this stuff. Oh, well, people want to see the best teams play. No, we want to see the teams who deserve to play.
Deserve to be there. And the teams that deserve to be there. And we've talked about teams that deserve to be there. And by golly, Cincinnati, I don't know if you got to see them play this year, Dave, but they deserve better, at least better than the final college football playoff ranking that they were given, because they are way better than that number that they were given. And they are definitely better than a few of those teams that are 2-3 loss teams. Florida loses to LSU because of a thrown cleat, and they drop one spot because, it's the SEC and this and that. I'm sorry, LSU, did you see how good they were this year? They weren't. They just fired their defensive coordinator. All teams are not created equal.
No, it sucks. Okay, I'm off my
fired up.
Let's take a timeout, and when we come back, we're going to have RJ Hollis joining us, and let's see how ticked off he is at college football. Actually, he's probably happy because Hawaii is going to the New Mexico Bowl. Let's take a timeout. Back with RJ Hollis. The word on the street regarding health is hydrate. So why not get some other benefits too? The new word is live, spelled L-I-V. So get out and live life well with products and systems made with new technology that you simply add to or take with water. You hydrate, lose weight, cleanse your system, gain energy, and it is all natural. Go to mylivezone.com/DAP. Live, L-I-V, zone.com/DAP. And we're joined by RJ Hollis, Frmr former offensive lineman with the University of Hawaii. He is happy because University of Hawaii football is going to a bowl game, a mainland bowl game, after getting through all this pandemic COVID-19 season. They had a 4-4 record, playing without fans, but they get to go a bowl game. So how great of a Christmas for that group. And RJ, first of all, thanks for joining us. You have an awesome background, by the way. You got your US logo stuff, the wreath, Christmas tree.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
No, yeah. Get to mix the university, rep my school, and still have the holiday spirit. I knew I was going to be on a big time podcast, so I had to make sure my background was proper. Make sure it's good to go and stuff. So
looking good. Let me ask you this. I mean, obviously you didn't play this season, but as a former player, knowing that players had to do without fans, and I know the fans are a big part of the environment, the atmosphere, but sometimes when you hear about like NFL players when they play in the Super Bowl, they say, yeah, you look at the aura, all the flash bulbs, or once the first hit or the first snap, it's football, and all that gets kind of wiped out. Do you think if you had to play in this season without fans, that it's kind of like that where, yeah, it's kind of different, but once the first snap and the first hit, doesn't matter?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I was definitely a big fan guy. I love talking to all the people in the bottom row. I love getting the crowd involved when the defense, got to a third down. I would grab my Powerade towel and, run up and down the sideline, making sure I could get as many people hyping the Aloha Stadium as I could. So for me personally, I honestly think it'd be very difficult not to play in front of fans because I was such a, fan-driven guy. But no, most definitely. I mean, I've been in scrimmages where there's no fans in Aloha Stadium. I've had countless practices where there's no fans at Aloha Stadium. And, yeah, like you said, once the first snap clears, it's pretty much football from then on in. So I definitely think it's difficult for the players to do it. But, as we've seen most throughout this season, especially when you look at second half comparisons for the Bows, once football starts playing, there's nothing else but football. So fans or not, you got to figure it out.
Is there a small part of you, like in your career, you played pretty much from 2014 to 2016. So your final year, you got to play in the Hawaii Bowl, right? And then under Nick Rolovich, his first year as the head coach, this team is getting the little accolades of, hey, first mainland bowl since the Sugar Bowl in 2007. But there's just a little part of you that says, you know what? This season, if it was a regular season, maybe it would have been Hawaii Bowl again because there's no Hawaii Bowl. So, it's one of those things. It's an asterisk. But, I mean, we're all happy that they're going to a bowl. But being a former player that played in the Hawaii Bowl, is there that little bit of going, we earned the Hawaii Bowl a little bit?
Yeah,
I mean, like that.
No, not really. I mean, in all honesty, it's the New Mexico Bowl, so I don't think that has any more prestige than the Hawaii Bowl does. In all honesty, I think a lot of the guys would rather stay home instead of going to Frisco, Texas. But, at the same time, a bowl earned is a bowl earned. So whether it's the New Mexico Bowl, the Las Vegas Bowl, whatever it may be, it always feels great to go to a bowl game. It always feels great to be in postseason, to be in a standing where you are allowed or invited to a bowl game. And I played in a regime where we didn't go to any besides the very last game I ever played was a bowl game. So, definitely more of it's hats off to them. There's no, because it's in the mainland, that's great. In all honesty, I loved, being at the Ala Moana Surf Rider for a week and a half, not having to get on a plane, not having a jet lag. And, it actually kind of did us a benefit to play at home. So, I don't think, it's a asterisk thing or anything. They definitely earned it. They were 500. In 2016, we were 500. We were actually 6-7. So, through eligibility, we got in. And, sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles. But, no, I'm definitely happy for them, excited for them. I know they're excited. They definitely wanted to prove something after the UNLV. After pretty much the entire season, there was a lot of question marks. So for them to get that extra game, even though it's in Frisco, Texas, and you got to go play a team that is home to Texas, I definitely still think it's a great opportunity for them. And I'm happy for them, glad to see that they did get a bowl opportunity.
All right, Jay, you mentioned that 2016 bowl game. You guys get the win. It's your final collegiate game. There's a venue behind me. What memories do you have of this place just because of the news that came out last week about Aloha Stadium?
I have too many memories. I mean, like I was talking in an interview earlier where I kind of alluded to a lot of the things, but my first Division I footsteps were at Aloha Stadium. My first Division I start was at Aloha Stadium, in which we beat a Power 5 Pac-12 Colorado in the inaugural win. My final game, as you mentioned, was at Aloha Stadium in all white, where we win the first bowl game in a decade, and I get camera time with Max Holloway, and we're wearing all white, and it's just everybody has cigars in the locker room and all of that, and even professionally, my first ESPN radio broadcast was at Aloha Stadium. The first college kickoff I ever did was at Aloha Stadium. The first Spectrum Sports game, if this is the end of Aloha Stadium, the final Spectrum Sports game, all are things I've done at Aloha Stadium. So as far as as a player, as a young man, just trying to create a life out here on the islands, Aloha Stadium, whether they get rid of it, whether they make it anew, it will always be a part of my life. So I mean, it's not enough that can be said about things I've done at that venue. I've worked my first bowl game, the Hula Bowl. Rich Miano allowed me to come there and be a part of player personnel. I was on my first Jumbotron when, Chris Niole got us to do the Uptown Funk dance, and I got to skip class. And in the third quarter, I'm seeing myself on the Jumbotron. My mom gets to see it. So, I mean, my first time ever being on a ticket was at Aloha Stadium when we played UMass, and my mother had 177 tickets at the end of the game, popping out her purse like, yeah, I'm going to take these home. So, yeah, I mean, not even enough time that we could put in a podcast to really explain what that place means to me. But, I have so many memories of Aloha Stadium. It's sad that it had to be shut down, but I'm somewhat hopeful that maybe now the state gets behind it, a couple of Phantom boosters show up, and, in a couple of years, Hawaii will be able to keep rocking at Aloha Stadium.
I know you're a big Alabama fan. We talked about this recently on one of our Talk Story Fan Friday episodes. College football playoff rankings came out. The final ones came out yesterday. We're recording on Monday, so they came out on Sunday morning. Top four. Do you have any arguments, any discrepancies about the top four?
I mean, personally, I don't like the college football playoff at all. I think after you've seen what Clemson and Notre Dame just did to put Notre Dame back in the playoff after you just lost 24 points to a team that you're going to ultimately have to see again, possibly, I don't really agree with the whole idea of the college football playoff. To dwindle down 130 football teams into 4 and think you're going to be able to logically make a bracket, I just don't see it. A lot of people, there's a lot of Group 5 disrespect, a lot of Power 5 bias. The fact that teams can go 11-0 like Coastal Carolina or 7-0 like San Jose and not even make a New Year's Six. I think, these are all things that just come with trying to convolute college football down to 4 games. I mean, there's way too many teams. There's way too much importance. There's way too many rivalries. And, there should be more of an emphasis on just making postseason play. But I think too much importance has been put into the college football playoff. And now it's really just a popularity, blue blood, big bang contest to see who can, survive the longest with the most minimal amount of embarrassing losses. And then somehow you'll get voted back into this miracle force. So I'm really not a fan of the college football playoff, period. And I really don't agree with the top 4. And, it really would just be the fourth place team if I had to pick a team I didn't agree with. But, I don't think you can dwindle down even a top 25 to only 4 teams and be logical with it. So,
all right. So Christmas Eve, New Mexico Bowl in Frisco, Texas. Hawaii taking on Houston, like you mentioned, the Cougars. Basically, a drive away from Frisco. They're 3-4 overall, 3-3 in the AAC. Of course, Hawaii 4-4. Both overall and in the Mountain West Conference. 10:30 kickoff Hawaii time. yes, we want to see a win, but what are you most looking to see? What kind of performance do you want to see out of this Hawaii team come Christmas Eve?
I just want to see some flair and some fire. It's a lot, and I'm kind of sounding like a broken record in a lot of my interviews. I speak about momentum, I speak about energy, but when they played San Jose, I was sitting on the sideline with Kavika Hallams, and we just seen the energy that San Jose kept. Even when they played UNLV, granted, UNLV ultimately lost the game, but like I said in my Spectrum interview, Hawaii should have been up by 42, and UNLV just kind of had the wherewithal and the want to keep themselves in the game. This is a very talented team. Make no mistake about it. There's a lot of talent on this Hawaii football team. I just feel like they have to show it. I feel like they have to get into a flow, Joe. And, not necessarily a dominating win, but a clean win, a good win, a win that'll be able to send us into the offseason with, concerns more just about where they're going to play or logistics of a stadium and not worrying about, well, who's going to be at this position, who's going to run that, did we get the right coach? And, if you lose a bowl game, it's kind of a high risk, high reward type thing. You're going to the bowl game, you're accepting a bid, but by doing that, you're now removing the chance of a 500 season. You're either going to have a winning season or a losing season. That all comes into this game. So it's definitely a big game for them. It's definitely a team in Houston that's hungry. They lost a heartbreaker to Memphis. They're definitely going to give Hawaii everything they got. So it's definitely going to be a big opportunity for them just to end this season that has been so crazy off on a good note, as well as start Todd Graham's era with a winning season.
RJ Hollis, our guest today on the Dave and Tiff Sports Podcast. And I wanted to ask you this. I've never had a chance to ask a player who played during two coaching regimes. You had the opportunity, you were recruited by Norm Chow's staff, and then your final season, your senior season, was Nick Rolovich's first year, and it was a turnaround. So your junior season, the team record was 3-10. Your senior season, it ends 7-7 with the Hawaii Bowl. What was the difference? What made the difference? Was it personnel being used in a more appropriate way? Was it a style? Was it a culture? What was the difference between your junior year and your senior year?
Well, honestly, in all honesty, I can say it was just really a culture movement. It was really we will not be denied mentality in the locker room. We had talent years prior, but, there was a game, and I should know it by now because I've told the story a couple times, but there was a game in 2015 where we lost at home. We were wearing all black, and the tradition stands that win or lose, we go address the band in the south end zone or north end zone, whichever, at the end of the game. Well, I don't know what happened or who gave the order, but for some odd reason, none of the team went to address the band. They all just went straight into the tunnel. And this was after Norm Chow, I believe, it got fired, and we had replaced him with Chris Niola as the interim. But at that point, just standing there at Aloha Stadium and, another moment, like I said, that is just always going to be big for me. I kind of realized at that point it was a thing that had to be taken in the locker room. At the end of the day, coaches would come and go, but, what we would have to do would have to be done in the locker room. And I think Rolo sensed that as soon as he got here and kind of stepped back and let us take over that team. I mean, the first game, even in Cal, when we came in at halftime, Rolo came up to me and was like, hey, get him going. He didn't try and do it himself. He didn't try and change what was going on. He sensed that everybody kind of got around me. Everybody kind of, gravitated towards what I was saying, and the energy I would put off would be, kind of contagious. And we would take a lot of fields, with that energy, with that passion, just to go. And I feel like in 2016, that kind of, even if you get down to the games that we did win to get us into the bowl game, Fresno State, 3 out of our 5 offensive linemen had one good hand. We had guys banged up. We had guys that couldn't practice and had to limp their way onto a football field. And we won that game by a field goal block just to come home and have UMass, which should have been a lot more easy game, turn into an absolute shootout that we win on the final touchdown there. So I definitely, guys like Leo Kolamatungi, Stephen Lakalaka, Jalen Rogers, Jelani Tavai, Gerald Garcia-Williams, Trayvon Henderson, even young guys like Ikamo Keke and what he would do on the kickoff team. I remember like 4 games consecutive, he had the inaugural kickoff. So there was an energy. There was just an overall vibe in that locker room that I think really flipped its switch in from 2015 to 2016. And, I think Rolovich kind of sensed that, and he just kind of stepped back and let us worried about the energy and execution. He just made sure that the plays were right and everybody showed up to where they needed to be on time. So I think that was definitely the biggest difference. That locker room was a special group of guys. And, even for me to win the most inspirational award, that was a big honor for me as well. But, they were my inspiration just like I was theirs. And I feel like we just fed off of each other majorly in 2016. And that's ultimately how we ended up getting to the bowl game and winning. Even when we went down 14-0, we just kind of had a resiliency about us that we really wouldn't be denied. So I think that was the biggest difference from 2015 to 2016, just the mentality, the brotherhood, and the culture that we had in the locker room itself.
Well, good stuff there, IJ. Thanks so much for joining us. Actually, I thought you were going to say it was because Nick Rolovich dressed up as a leprechaun, but that's for another show. But then
maybe that worked for him.
Yeah,
maybe that was his look.
That brings the energy. Hey, RJ, thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast. And we want to say happy holidays to you, and definitely have a great new year coming in 2021.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for having me on, Tiff. Dave, always a pleasure. And anytime y'all need me, don't hesitate to call. I'm always just a click, text, or whatever away. So if you guys need me for anything, let me know. And thank you so much for having me on. It's always great to, get another opportunity to give my opinion out, So happy holidays to you guys, and I really appreciate you for having me on.
Over 30 years of experience of covering Hawaii sports and telling stories can be found with BedrockSportsHawaii.com. Hawaii sports writer Nick Abramo shares his passion for insight, news, and opinions, along with stories and tales in what he calls the inexhaustible universe of athletics. Football, surfing, hockey, yes, hockey, and wrestling are some of the featured content you will find on BedrockSportsHawaii.com. Award-winning Hawaii sports writer Cindy Lewis shares her love of volleyball and other sports topics with her new website, cindylewis.com. After nearly 40 years of covering the top events in Hawaii, Cindy brings her reporting flair and insight to the digital format for all to enjoy. Get the very latest information on University of Hawaii volleyball for all teams, women, men, and beach, from one of the most respected journalists in the state. Go to cindylewis.com and you will be connected. Okay, so now that Aloha Stadium will not host any more football, we got to help athletic director for the University of Hawaii, David Matlin, out. So we are going to come up with our suggestions for where Hawaii can play football next season. So Tiff, what have you come up on your list?
This is the easiest one, and it's an island away. It's over at War Memorial Stadium, and a lot of this came from Rob Collius from the Maui News, and a lot of people have brought this one up. But the fact that War Memorial Stadium already has a paved parking lot, there we go, and their capacity is already around 15,500. And remember, to be an FBS member, you have to play in a venue that is minimum 15,000 capacity. So the size-wise, it's already there. It has most of the infrastructure, and granted, we've heard the Maui County Mayor Mike Victorino has already come out and said, hey, whatever we can do to help out UH, help out the state, and get this done, I will help facilitate the needs and everything to be done so that we can bring UH football to our island. So I think the best venue that has the least amount of work to be done to make it ready for next fall has got to be War Memorial Stadium.
The one place, and I thought of that place too, but the other one I was trying to think, okay, where on Oahu could you play? And the only place I could think of, and this is going to take a little bit more of a setup, is on campus at TC Ching Athletic Complex, which is the artificial turf field with the track, where Hawaii sometimes practices, but cross-country plays there. I do not know what the capacity for spectators is, so I know they're going to have to boost that up, whether they're going to bring in, rent some bleachers and have to bring it in on the end zone sides and even more on the sidelines. But in terms of obviously there's going to be parking that can be made available. That's there in the structure in and around University of Hawaii.
You're on campus.
You're on campus. If you want to get
on campus, you have the parking. You have the ability to get the gate. You get to have all the concessions, because we all know that not everything that is earned at the stadium goes back to the university.
Mm-hmm.
If like you said, if you're on campus, you get to keep everything that you make. So I like that idea. I think I've heard around 9,000 or so is the capacity for TC Ching. That might, give or take a few. So you might need to have a lot of other additional seating arrangements around the field.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you're able to keep everything you make from the game, I like that idea.
And also they would have to make a way to set it up where they got to do, how you enter, get tickets and all this kind of stuff, concession. It would have this kind of almost like a high school setup, but yet it's college football. And I would think they should schedule games at War Memorial on Maui, as well as if they decide to use TC Ching Athletic Complex and use both venues. I mean, Hawaii did actually play at War Memorial, I think 2001 or 2001?
2001 against Montana, yes.
Yeah, so they have played there. I mean, it would be great for Maui. Great for the program. I mean, to play at another island and how it shows the resources of the different counties kind of helping out. But
I like your idea with the on-campus stadium, but also think about this. What has been the running joke for years upon years about what section or sections have been vacated? Basically, the entire section has not been there. It's been the student section.
Yeah.
If you have an on-campus football facility, I will guarantee you this, that you will have a lot more students basically walking to TC Ching complex to go to the game, because it's a walk away from their dorm. It's not a bus ride into the stadium and then you're at the mercy of whenever the buses get you back to campus. Granted, it's community campus, but if you have an on-campus facility, I will guarantee you will have more students at that game or those games this coming season or in the next season or two.
And what school is it? Is it Boise State that has, I mean, for the success of their football program, their stadium is, I think, only about 30,000 or something like that. It's kind of small, but everyone talks about that home field advantage. So can you imagine even if it's 15,000, but if it's full 15,000 and it's that would make such an intimate home field advantage in terms of crowd noise, more students being there. You know how rabid students can be instead of us old folks there. I mean, they'd be jumping and screaming. I mean, it could be an atmosphere that would be very, very positive for the football team in terms of a home place. It's not as big a crowd, not as majestic as Aloha Stadium, obviously, but intimate, rabid fans, ticket prices a little bit less because of the venue. I don't know, whatever it is. But, I mean, that could be something to say. And I'm sure Maui, they play there. Everyone's going down there if they play at War Memorial. Because when is the next time they'll get to see University of Hawaii football on their island, right?
You never know. But like we said, if you have an on-campus venue, you'll get a lot more students. But also the fact that if you do have football games on campus at TC Ching, yes, you'll have to, we talked about this, the seating capacity and what you have to bring in to make it, over that 15,000 minimum. But you're going to have people that are going to want to go just for the novelty of it because it hasn't happened. You're going to have your season ticket holders that are, going to support the program year in and year out that like to do. But I also think if you're able to attract more students to come to the game to watch their fellow classmates compete, it's a win-win for everybody.
And just think, if Hawaii sets that facility up for football to have fans, guess who else is going to come knocking at the door to rent the facility? All the high schools, because high schools are going to be looking. The ILH is going to need a place to play because they played a ton of their football games, majority of them at Aloha Stadium. So they're looking, and guess what? More revenue for UH athletics when you got to rent out their field for high schools and who knows what else, because it's right in town. How nice is that? So I'm going to type it up. I'm going to set it up in an official proposal format, and we'll send it over to Athletic Director David Matlin and say it's from Dave and Tiff. Merry Christmas.
Because he's not busy enough as it is. He and the team are en route to Frisco. Best of luck to them. But yes, it's not like he has nothing else to do during the holidays. He's a very busy guy.
And I'll put at the bottom of the proposal, "You're welcome," because he'll say, "Well, thank you, Dave and Tiff. These are great ideas." But
well, we did see him at Simplify Arena at the Stan Sheriff Center yesterday. He did come by and say hi for a few seconds. So
and he had a Santa hat on.
He did have a Santa hat on, yes.
Yeah, so he's in the spirit. So he's in good spirits despite all the stress. But anyway, that'll do it for our final podcast of 2020. Happy holidays. Happy New Year to you, Tiff. And we will look forward to a much more exciting 2021 for the Dave and Tiff podcast. So I was going to say happy anniversary. So happy holidays again. And as always, Tiff, what's our final message?
Stay safe, wear that mask, and remember to deliver the presents the day you're supposed to, unlike some people we know. But thanks for the popcorn, Dave.
As long as it's before December 25th. So that's all.
Yes.
All right. Aloha.